All right, let's get into it. Postcolonialism. It's one of those big words you hear all the time, right? But what's it actually about? Well, today we're going to break down what this powerful idea really means, and even better, give you a toolkit to start seeing its impact pretty much everywhere. So where do we even start? Well, you just have to look at a world map. You know, the old system of one country ruling another might not be as common anymore, but when you see the massive gap in wealth between, say, Europe and Africa or North America and South America, that's a huge clue that something is still going on. Colonialism left behind a very clear and very persistent legacy. And really, that's what postcolonialism is all about. It's the study of that legacy, how it hangs around. Now, this totally applies to things like politics and economics, but for today, we're going to focus on where you can often see it most clearly, in our culture. So, if we're going to get formal for a second, what is it? Well, postcolonialism isn't just one single idea. Think of it more like a big umbrella that covers a whole bunch of theories. But the one thing they all have in common is that they explore how the colonial past is still very, very much alive and shaping our world right now. Okay, so how do we actually analyze this legacy? A huge piece of the puzzle starts with one single game-changing book, Edward Said's Orientalism, which came out back in 1978. It pretty much laid the foundation for so much of what we call post-colonial theory today. Said's main argument was actually pretty simple. You can't understand culture without understanding power. He argued that because of centuries of colonial rule, the West had way more power to define what global culture looked like than the East. Essentially, the West got to tell the story, and in doing so, it kind of took away the East's ability to represent itself. And here's a look at how that power dynamic actually works. The West sets itself up as the default, the norm. It's logical, it's cultured, it's modern. And in that process, it defines the East as its total opposite, mysterious, irrational, exotic. It creates this completely artificial divide, a total fabrication that serves the group in power. And this whole process, it has a name, othering. It's the act of defining a group as fundamentally different and usually inferior to your own group. This is one of the absolute core concepts you've got to know. So, now that we've got the core theory down, let's make it practical. Let's actually build a toolkit that you can use to look at culture through this post-colonial lens. A scholar named Peter Barry gives us a super helpful framework here. He says there are four main things that pop up over and over again. First, an awareness of the other. Second, the role language plays. Third, this idea of a hybrid identity. And finally, a focus on cross-cultural interactions. Now, to see how this toolkit works in the real world, we're going to apply it to a massive cultural moment that I'm sure you all know, Marvel's 2018 smash hit, Black Panther. It's a perfect case study, really, because the movie itself seems to be thinking about these exact same issues. Okay, let's grab our first tool. We're on the lookout for how the film either supports that old colonial idea of the West as the norm or how it challenges it. And Black Panther, well, it doesn't just challenge this idea, it completely flips it on its head. In the film, Wakanda is an African nation that is richer and way more technologically advanced than any other country on the planet. This is a brilliant way to decenter the West by putting a fictional nation rooted in African traditions right at the heart of global power. All right, let's move on to our second tool, language. Now, this is a huge one. Just remember, under colonialism, so many nations were forced to use the language of their colonizer. So a post-colonial analysis asks, how does a story use language? Does it reinforce that legacy, or does it try to subvert it? The filmmakers here made a really powerful and specific choice. The language spoken in Wakanda is isiXhosa, which is a real language from South Africa. This is so significant because isiXhosa is deeply connected to the fight against white colonizers and apartheid. In fact, key anti-apartheid leaders, including Nelson Mandela himself, were Xhosa. So that choice brings a real-world history of resistance right into the movie. Okay, next up, hybrid identity. This one is fascinating. It's this idea that colonialism forced a mixing of cultures, which led to these really complex, sometimes doubled identities for people who live through it or are part of the diaspora today. And this idea, it's literally the beating heart of the film's main conflict. On one side, you have T'Challa, who believes in keeping Wakanda isolated. On the other, you have Killmonger, who is all about Pan-Africanism, this idea of a global connection between all people of African descent. It's a brilliant way to explore that very idea of a hybrid identity, that someone can be American, but also have this core African identity at the same time. And for our final tool, we're looking at cross-cultural interactions. This is where we kind of zoom out and look at the creative process itself. When different cultures come together to make something, we have to ask, who has the power? Who gets to make the decisions? And where does the money go? So Black Panther is itself a cross-cultural creation. You have a massive American company, Disney, making a film that draws heavily from African cultures. Now, historically, that kind of dynamic has often been super problematic. But this film was praised by many for using its giant platform to really showcase the talent of African creatives and artists from the diaspora, almost like it was trying to subvert that old dynamic of just taking things to make Western companies richer. So, okay, we've defined post-colonialism and we've put our new toolkit to work on a superhero movie. But why does any of this actually matter once you leave the movie theater? Because here's the thing you should take away. Post-colonialism isn't just some dusty academic theory. It's a lens. It gives you the tools to look critically at the stories that shape our entire world, everything from Hollywood blockbusters to the nightly news, and to start asking, hey, who has the power to tell this story? So now that toolkit is yours. You've got awareness of the other, the role of language, hybrid identity, and cross-cultural interactions. And the question I want to leave you with is, now that you have it, where else do you see it at work? Where else are these old colonial legacies being reinforced? And maybe more importantly, where do you see them being challenged?